Hello, welcome to the Average Joe Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode 11, Malachy Friedman. Malachy Friedman is a second-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under the legendary master Ricardo Liborio of Carlos Gracie lineage. With almost 20 years of experience, Professor Friedman is adept in multiple fighting disciplines, including MMA, BJJ, boxing, Muay Thai, and wrestling. Malachy started his training with the late UFC Middle-Weight Champion, Evan Tanner. After years of competition in 2006, Malachy joined American Top Team in Coconut Creek, Florida, where he coached beginners and champs of both MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu until 2015. In 2015, Malachy brought his experience and knowledge back to his hometown of Charleston, where he and his wife, Sarah, own and operate Black Label Martial Arts Academy. Malachy also owns Black Label Jiu-Jitsu Raiders team and teaches free women's self-defense seminars to the Charleston and surrounding areas. Malachy teaches the same techniques in women's self-defense that he wants his wife and daughter to know. In addition to coaching, Malachy is both a strategist and innovator in the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, creating several video instructionals based on his innovative style of Jiu-Jitsu. Malachy, thank you for coming on the podcast today and having a conversation with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I've actually been a big fan for a long time. I've been watching your videos on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and followed you for several years, probably like almost since the beginning that I trained. So
nice,
close to 8 years. Yeah. So
wow,
it's
yeah.
Honor to get to sit down and talk to you. And so I thought about going through your background a little bit. And one thing I thought was interesting is how you started with Evan Tanner. How long did you train with him?
I would say all in probably a year and a half. So I went out to Oregon and was kind of bouncing around gyms there. That was kind of when Evan Tanner made a break from Team Quest. And I found, he was there and he was working on a fight with Phil Baroni, I think. And he basically just asked, hey, can you keep showing up? And I just kept showing up. We became pretty close friends. He won the title, with against Dave Terrell. He was still out in Oregon. He was doing some work in Vegas and California, and then he popped back into Oregon. And then pretty much I moved in with him in Vegas, and then we moved back to Oregon. And at some point, our relationship kind of dissolved. It was, an amazing person, but he was like, if you've watched any of the documentaries.
I did watch the documentary. Yeah.
He was super tormented, and so I was really young. I was like 21 or 22 or turning 22. Yeah. So I was 21, and you get an opportunity to be around a UFC champion. You kind of take the good with the bad.
Right.
So he was, as an amazing person as he was, an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It was just crazy moments. There's just crazy things going on. And at some point, the relationship dissolved and I moved to the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
But training with him was amazing. I mean, learning on, like, because he never taught a class. He never taught like, hey, this is what we're doing. We just beat each other up. And then we like kind of talk about how, like how he controlled me here, or how he beat me up here, or this was good or that was good. It was really, really, I think you can ask for more from being a 21-year-old MMA fighter to have somebody like take you under their wing like that,
Right.
So it was really special.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember I actually went down a little bit of a Evan Tanner rabbit hole when I started preparing for this interview, when I saw that. And that's when I found the documentary on YouTube, and I watched that. I think it was called I Was a Champion. I was like, wow, that's pretty. Yeah, he had a lot of demons. Yeah, he definitely had a lot of demons. Yeah.
He's got a book coming out soon. There's a guy called me about a book, and I was like, I didn't really want to do the once I was a champion thing. Like it was just didn't feel right.
Right.
Because some of the people they were interviewing didn't feel right either. Like, it's like when you have like a personal relationship with somebody, and then you say like, well, why is this guy getting interviewed? Why is this? Because it's a big name, or, like it was all kind of odd castmates. I talked to some guy who's been working on a book for the past 4 years. And And that was probably the first guy that I actually talked to, and like into like depth of
Right.
like what it was like to live with him, what it was like, you know, like what books he read, like what, like, was there anything that he was really, you know, like, and this guy was like getting the full story,
Right.
you know, rather than just getting like kind of like headlines or blurbs that were like really good to put in there. Like maybe it caused controversy, or maybe it was like a slight at Evan, or maybe it was like he was the greatest, you know, all of it, it was more, I assume there's a book coming out that's going to be pretty detailed about his life.
Well, I am going to read that book when it comes out.
Yeah.
If you hear about it, if you can let me know, I'd appreciate it. Actually, I really like to read it. Did you? So did Evan give you your base for your boxing, Muay Thai, and wrestling, or and jiu-jitsu, or just part of it?
I'd say he gave me a pretty good base on cage control. You know, he was somebody who was really good at throwing elbows. He was somebody who was really good at putting somebody up against the fence. And I would say, you know, like his striking wasn't great. So my striking didn't become very good because of his, but I learned to deal with a really big power. So like, you know, when you have certain teammates, you kind of adapt and you learn on your own, not necessarily because they're teaching you, but because if you get hit with Evan's right hand, your nose is going to change directions.
Yeah.
You know? And so like you learn on the fly, like, hey, I have to be aware of this, of his right hand. I have to be aware of more of this. So a lot of like training with each other, I learned more from him, more than like, okay, here's a, like it wasn't back in, like, so back in that day, it wasn't like really like instructionals, you know, like, oh, here's your base, here's your foundation, here's your this, like, especially for MMA was like, we're getting work in because I have a fight coming up. You're going to learn as I get this fight coming up. You have a fight coming up. You're going to learn on the job. You know what I mean? Like, so like you're kind of learning on the job all the time. And it's never really like, there was never really like a class where you sat down and like, hey, these are some moves that we can do. Hey, this is how we do, you know, like we don't get submitted. We keep our arms inside. It's like, you know, you get your arm snatched and then it's like, hey, keep your arms inside, you know? And so it's kind of like that kind of learning process.
That's really interesting. That's completely different than what people do. You know, most people do nowadays. That's interesting. Exactly. You like learn on the fly and basically like by experience, and what happens. You know, interesting question. Since you have an MMA background, obviously in striking, and you're very good at jiu-jitsu. Have you ever heard the John Danaher theory about the pins and striking, about the hierarchy of the pins, or basically how the pins are, you know, they're the points. You get more points depending for a pin, like for knee on belly or mount or back control, because of their ability to deliver strikes, that they have a higher. Yeah. So in your opinion in MMA, were there other positions besides those three, or what were the best positions you found for striking in MMA from the ground?
Oh man,
what types of strikes?
Yeah. I would say on the ground, if you have good jiu-jitsu and you have, a decent amount of wrestling, like you don't have to be a wrestler, but you have to understand wrestling, especially for the cage type stuff, but half guard. I mean, this is Randy Couture. This is Evan Tanner. You sit because the half guard is going to allow you not to be completely controlled. You know, like where they can grab your head and they can grab your wrists and like really pull their knees in and suck you in. If you learn how to play half guard in a proper manner and you are able to block the knee shield, hammer fists and like strikes to the body and overhand rights, if you know how to block the underhook, are really good from half guard. I mean, like in my opinion, you know, like if you look at any of the wrestlers that are coming through, besides, I gotta say, did you watch the Davis versus Romero fight?
No, I didn't get a chance to see it. No.
That's a really good. So the 5th round is when Davis takes Romero down, and there were some really good controls that were somewhat new. But it was very, very good. He was able to knee the body from like having Romero in like a turtle position. But you look at the guys from Dagestan, and they're always throwing legs over. So like as soon as you get the takedown, they're putting themselves in half guard at all times. You know, and I think the guy who does that really well too is James Krause. You notice James Krause gets a takedown, and if he's on side control, he's going to throw his leg into half guard. That's going to keep you on top. So like the positions like side control, positions like mount and back, I believe are kill positions that you work your way into, unless you really know what you're doing, because it's a reverse engineering of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where the top hook is more important than the bottom hook, right? Because the bottom hook, you want to keep the back, right? In MMA Jiu-Jitsu, you want to keep the top hook, because when the person escapes out, you want to come into half guard.
Okay.
So half guard is controlling the hips. So if you control their hips, they cannot be as explosive. They can't be like, so controlling somebody in side control, yeah, it's really easy when you have an underhook and you're controlling the head. Right. It's not easy, but it's much easier when your only goal is to control the position and try to go to mount, right? In reality, you put a professional MMA fighter who has athletic skills, good hips, that guy is going to get back to his feet. Like he's going to kick you off. He's going to scramble, at least in the beginning. Right. In the beginning, he's going, you know, like when the adrenaline's rushing through you, and you have all that, you know, you have all that extra energy, like just like that you've never had in training, you're getting back up to your feet. And so you want to make sure that the only thing that they can't do is get back to their feet. So you throw the leg inside the half, and you kind of work maybe the quarter mount. Those things are really good. Quarter mount's probably the best place to be in striking, because you're in mount, but you're controlling the hips. Right. As soon as you start going to mount, like first round, second round, maybe second round, but like that makes the guy easy to scramble. You know, like the flip, the turn, however you can. So I really believe like there's times and places for going to those better positions, which is mount and back. You want to beat the guy up in half guard. You want to quarter mount. You want to make him give you the back, not give you the back because he's avoiding the punches, but give you the back because he's done. He's cooked. You cooked him enough for the rear naked choke. Because the worst place to be, and this sounds silly, is if you watch most fights, if you're on the back for 2 minutes, right? First round, and you're looking for the rear naked choke, the person who's going to be the most affected by the end of that round, if there's no rear naked choke, is the person that was attempting the rear naked choke. Right. His legs are going to be burned out because he's been pulling his hooks tight. His arms are going to be burned out. He also was at a point where he was like at an extreme like high that he's going to come close to finishing this fight. And then he's going to go to an extreme low that he didn't finish that fight. And he has to go back to his corner and go back to standing and go back to start all over again. Yeah. So it's really kind of a defeating process to get to the back and not know how to get back on top. Like, so when you give up the mount, you give up the back mount and you say, hey, back mount's not working. This guy's he's really fresh. He's got good defense. I got to go to the top mount where I'm exerting less energy and I'm doing more damage. Right.
So as you keep the top hook in, and if he turns, gets onto his back, you flip up on top into half guard or step down.
In the half guard, and you start your whole system again.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm 50, so I'm never going to do MMA, but it's interesting to me because, you know, I've done martial arts most of my life, and I did karate for 10 years and stuff. And so I have a little bit of a striking background. So I like the idea of, you know, knowing where to place it in my jiu-jitsu if I ever had used, you know, for self-defense or something like that. It's interesting to me.
In self-defense, the number one thing is like, I think it goes to the same thing. Half guard is a really good control. You know what I mean? Like, like, and of course they're gonna have, if the guy doesn't know anything, he's gonna have his legs wide open. Right. So you hook his legs, and you can like, because if you're not looking to end this guy's day, you know what I mean? You're just looking to control a drunk person. Right. Half guard's really good. Going to mount, that's when mistakes start, like, because your adrenaline's building. Right. And things are going on, and you know, like you lose top control. losing top control in a street fight or self-defense scenario is no.
Mhm.
You know, it's like
Mhm.
it's a huge, like, that's a huge detriment. Like, that's life and death
Yeah.
also. You know, like,
Yeah.
you lose it, and all of a sudden you're thinking control, beat him up to where he can't injure you. He's thinking murder, kill this person.
Right.
You don't know what the other guy's thinking, you know, and there's no
Right.
way to stop him, or there's nothing, you know.
Mhm.
So it's really dangerous when you do jiu-jitsu outside of the fundamentals
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
self-defense. Like, man,
Yeah.
if I went against anybody, no matter 20 years I've been doing jiu-jitsu, I would go so slow.
Mhm.
It would be like takedown, control,
Mhm.
half guard, control. You know, like you creep up on somebody. Like, you know, you have to be an anaconda in
Mhm.
that scenario, because
Mhm.
you lose track of anybody and you're on your back. That's the worst possible place that you can be in a
Right.
fight, even though that we train it all the time. Like, oh yeah, if I get my guard, I'll be fine. It's like, no, that's the worst place you want to be.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's when boots start coming to your head from his friends.
Right. Exactly. And that sort of goes into the whole thing too, where, I mean, I've always thought about like self-defense or something for jiu-jitsu, where I've never really been a big believer in the Gracie self-defense techniques because of past experience I've had with like traditional Japanese martial arts, and without the live element, where you sort of develop this false sense of ability or security, and then you try to actually use it and it sort of falls apart. It doesn't really work too well. But I have, after training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I thought, well, if I ever get an altercation, if I can, rear naked choke, because at least I can put the guy to sleep, you know, and then I'm not hurting him. But then at the same time, you're sort of in that same position where you're thinking, if you're going to rear naked choke somebody from their back, you're on your back, you know,
Right.
and so you're in that same vulnerable position with the friends and the boots, and et cetera. So
Right.
it's an interesting dilemma to like really put together, and what type of situation. I guess it all depends on the particular situation and what the circumstances are. But yeah, there's no like one fits all answer, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't say that you're not going to get booted in the head.
Mhm.
You know, you know, like, what are you supposed to do? Kill the guy immediately and then deal with his friends? It's like,
Right.
it's not a John Wick movie.
Right.
So, you know, you can't go that far into like, okay, if you're trying to do the right thing
Mhm.
by putting the person to sleep, that person's going to like, if they've never been put unconscious before,
Mhm.
they're going to freak out.
Mhm.
And their friends are going to freak out because they've
Right.
never seen it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
basically that is a kill. That is a John Wick kill.
It is.
Movie.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
if you want to keep it, you're gonna like, so you up the stakes when you say like, hey, I'm gonna put this person unconscious.
Mhm.
You know, like you've gone a little bit farther than controlling
Mhm.
a person who's angry.
Mhm.
The best thing to do is always just to control somebody and be like, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you. You know what I mean? So that the friends are like, hey, he doesn't want to fight you. Get off him. And then
Right.
the friends pull you off of him, you know, and hopefully there's a separation where
Yeah.
it doesn't start again.
Yeah, you're almost at that point better off being top half guard, controlling, you know, shoulder pressure, hip pressure, you know, 3/4 mount, and just hold them down and just talk to them. And go from there.
Try to make everybody else around you understand that you're not trying to hurt.
Yeah, and be loud about it too. Like, I don't want to fight you. Yeah, especially like where I live in California, forget it. You get sued for everything, you know.
Yeah,
that's the other thing, is illegal.
I live in South Carolina. You get shot for anything.
Well, it's even worse. I'd rather get sued. Yeah.
So it's like you like everybody in South Carolina has a gun. You know what I mean? And so, you know, you have to assume that most people are carrying.
Mhm.
You know, especially nowadays.
Right.
And so it's like, you know, you don't know if they're carrying at the bar. You don't know if they're carrying, you know, they're definitely carrying in their car.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so you definitely know somewhere in their, like, they may be at the bar, but somewhere, if you choke that person unconscious, are they going to wake up and go to their car as you're being lauded the champion and being like, yeah, you kick that guy's ass, and he goes to his car, gets his gun and blows your head off.
And it happens. That happens. You know. I mean, I remember, I don't know if it wasn't true in that part, but there was a movie I watched a while back. What was it called? God damn it! It was that remake of the Karate Kid with MMA in Florida. Never Back Down, I think is what it was called. But there was the MMA Teacher. The whole background of his story is he was Brazilian and his brother was better than him, got into a bar fight with some guy, beat him up, got went out to his car, got a gun, came back in and shot him and killed him in the head. So I mean, yeah, it's a story in a movie that's fictitious, but by all accounts, that probably does really happen. So
I can't remember the kickboxer. So I always try to bring up this guy. I mean, he's a multiple time kickboxer. And it sucks that I can't remember his name. But he was outside of it. He was in his gym and somebody was stealing his car radio. And he chased the guy down. And the guy just turned around, made one shot from a gun and killed him.
Damn.
Why the hell would you steal a gun outside of a kickboxing? You're going to get your ass kicked. No, he didn't get his ass kicked. What he did was he killed the guy because the guy's chasing after him down the street, and the guy just and who knows if the guy wanted to murder him. He just shot the gun in the direction the guy was chasing him, and now you got a guy who's like a multiple time world champion kickboxer dead, chasing a guy who's trying to get your CD, your CD player.
Yeah. It's just worth it's that kind of stuff's just not worth it. And I understand, like, you get that adrenaline rush and you get angry and you react, but the reality of it is it's just stuff like that. It's just let them have it. If they're just rob you, just give them whatever they want, let them have it. It's not worth your life. But I do want to ask you, I've always had this theory about areas where people are allowed to carry weapons concealed. Do you have a lower crime rate there? Is there less people getting less altercations?
I don't think so.
No.
I think, I don't think that we have like road rage like probably LA. Like LA is probably road rage. And there's probably a lot of places where you can get into arguments with people in cars, and it not come to an altercation where both people are outside of the car. But I mean, I think Florida has a concealed carry. And just to tell you a story, there was like my mother-in-law lives in a really nice neighborhood, and I guess this kid honked her. They had some kind of like interaction. Guy pulls up next to him, got kids like 17, shoots the kid from the other car, kills him. This is like in a neighbor, like this is like going into a neighborhood that's not very rich. It's, I would say, what's the medium income,
middle class,
middle class, but higher middle class.
Yeah.
Where some of the other neighborhoods in that direction are also like $1 million homes. Like, so you got like $500,000 homes, $300,000 homes, $1 million homes a little bit farther down. Pulls out a gun, kills the kid in front of his girlfriend sitting beside him.
Wow.
Because they pulled up next to him to argue. The guy just decides to shoot.
Yeah.
It definitely changes my, I definitely curse at a lot of people in my own car, not at them. I definitely get upset with people in the car. But I definitely understand that everybody has like from the dorkiest, not dorkiest, but you can't judge a book by anybody. Yeah, you can't judge a book by its cover, by anything up here, because and you realize that everybody has the ability to feel threatened, especially by somebody. Like if I'm bigger than them, they're going to feel threatened. And I understand that the gun is the equalizer.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they can start talking, they'll start cursing at me or whatever. And because it can become something normal. And then all of a sudden, if I'm larger than them or I'm more intimidating than them, then they are fearful of their life. And of course, what you're going to do is you're going to pull out the only thing that's going to make the fight even. And then boom, there you go. It's like,
it's over. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing is that bullets overcome everything.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what it's like, it's a well-placed bullet just finishes it. That's an interesting conversation though. That was a fun conversation. Like I've never really talked to anybody about that type of thing before on the podcast yet. And, with your background, I thought it'd be interesting to ask you that. And that's some good information as well. I mean, your response to the striking question was excellent. And I know you have the self-defense background, so I wanted to talk to you about that, and I want to get more into that in a bit too.
Okay.
That was great. But I want going back to your MMA career. How long did you train before your first MMA fight? How long did you compete as an amateur before turning pro?
So I went pro really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have been training 2.5 years, maybe less, because I don't really count the first half of my training, because I wasn't like super serious,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But there were these shows out in like Washington, Wenatchee, Washington, and like where like I remember there's no scale.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there is no scale, there is no weigh-in. Like he told you, hey, make 155, you'd be here 155.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you drive 5 hours out to like almost Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that they would pick up like, so outside of the they're trying to fill their cards.
Right.
And this is like amateur / pro, because they're paying people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you want to say like they're not, but they like, this is like Indian reservation. Like
Right.
they need to fill this card. So they're given like, they're picking like inmates up outside of like who are like getting released, and they're picking those guys up and offering them a hotel, which
Mm-hmm.
is of course great for anybody getting out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
They're offering them $300 and like some amount of money in because you can't get paid, but you get paid in chips.
Mm-hmm. Poker chips
At the nearby casino.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, so you have like these guys just getting straight out of jail, going filling into a card as the card's being made that night.
Wow.
You know, and getting those type of fights and fighting in that kind of like especially like how crowded and how close the fights were. It's so much different when you go to like a pro level, and then the pro level is like, you know, like I stepped onto a pretty big pro show right away with where we were already in Atlantic City, you know, and like it was maybe the first show was 2,000 to 3,000 people, and the next show was 5,000, which was way more. Like I know a lot of people kind of get shooken up by that. I was able to deal with that a lot better than I was able to deal with small, intimate events. You know, because when you walk out to like a show that has a lot of people or has pretty much a bigger crowd, it just becomes a sea of faces. It doesn't become anybody, you know, like it doesn't become like nobody's registering in your like synapses, like going like that guy with the beard with the overalls, or like this guy. Like at those amateur level fights, you know, and a lot of my fighters who I deal with now who are amateur, they deal better with those small shows. And when it becomes a big show, they kind of like, not necessarily they tank, they just kind of get stuck. They don't understand where to look, what they should be focused on. You know what I mean? Like they're riding a little bit too high because there's so many people, where I was pretty much the exact opposite, where the more people, the better, because it was just a hum, you know, and rather than actually like walking by a guy and the guy, good luck, guy, good luck, hope you win. And you're like, God, I can't be talking to this guy right now. It's like getting ready, like getting my mouthpiece, like, you know, checked and my cup checked, and this guy's going over like, what's your name? Like, what's your name again? I'm a root for you. I'm like, all right, thank you.
Leave me alone.
I gotta go do this thing now.
I'm trying to focus. Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, I had a lot of, the way that I was training, like I was saying, like with Evan and stuff like that, the way that we were training and certain things that I did kind of broke my any kind of pro. I never had like an aspiration to be a world champion. I had an aspiration to fight people that I wasn't supposed to beat, or I had aspirations to fight. Like I always liked Sakuraba. Like he's not one of my favorite fighters, but I always loved that, like there was like a Sakuraba fight with him and Vanderlei, or like, you know, like, or there was a Sakuraba, or there was like a Vanderlei fight with like Hunt. I was always looking at fights like that. Like those are the interesting fights for me, because who cares who loses, who wins? You know what I mean? Like this is what fighting is. You know, like it's a big guy, but it's gotten into so much of a sport now that it's completely changed. And I was not training for a sport. I was constantly fighting in the gym, constantly training. I was a lot of people's, like, if there was anybody in the gym so has a fight going on, I was in their camp and I was running my body ragged. So at some point I had like a neck injury and I just halted, like not like I sprained my neck and it's not feeling good. Like a neck injury to like, where like your arm drops dead. You're like, well, shit. You're like, well, this is not going to work in fighting anymore. Then you get the neck, then you get the surgery, and it doesn't really ever come back. And so that was kind of like what led me into like kind of more coaching than anything else. You know, it's because I always knew I'd be a coach. I always knew the way I studied, like the way I learned a lot of the fights, a lot of the stuff that I did learn, or I put against other people, was things that I directly copied from fighters. You know, like watching a fighter saying like, oh, that's how Shogun passes the guard, you know, like from standing, or that's how Carlo Parisian gets takedowns if he can't, you know, if you're not a wrestler, you know, like you got to use upper body throws, or you got to use, you know, arm drags or Kimura locks to get it to the ground. I really studied a lot of those guys, and I kind of knew from the beginning that like, I love fighting. I love the physicality of fighting. I'm not that sport guy. But I understood that my brain worked really well in a analytical way of picking apart fights and finding patterns and finding stuff like that for myself, so I could be good, that I could do it for other people. And I was just lucky enough that I had a coach like Ricardo Liborio that kind of believed in me, and kind of pushed me into coaching and kept me around, you know, because a lot of guys, when it's done, when it's over, you know, like there's always an option to say no, you know, and be like, I don't want to work all the way up back to another spot again. Like, you know, like here I am, I'm at a very large team. You know, I'm working with the best in the world. I should get my shot. And then all of a sudden you have an injury and they go, hey, you can start teaching kids. You know, you can start teaching not even the kids classes, the after school kids classes. You know, where the parents aren't taking them to martial arts because they wants to learn martial arts. It's a daycare and they're doing some kind of activity and they're doing, so it's like, I said, yeah, you know, it was just like, I said yes to that. And I said yes to everything else that followed. And I made sure that I was always around to say yes to opportunities, you know, to kind of build myself into being a coach. And now funny thing is that, you know, I coach adults, coach fighters, but I enjoy probably the most I enjoy, I'm having the most fun is when I'm teaching my kids classes. Right. And so like, it kind of like I couldn't wait to get out and start teaching. Like that, I think that goes for a lot of my you know, my students that maybe help teach kids, or they're like, they want to teach adults so bad because it's like that peer recognition. Right. And they're like, oh, I don't want to teach kids. I want to teach adults. And they don't realize that like most of those adults are going to turn over. Most of the people you're going to teach, they're not going to, like, we know like the statistics, they're not going to become a purple belt. You know, like they're not going to become a black belt. So you're teaching, you're basically teaching a turnover. You know, you haven't gotten to it yet because you haven't seen it, but it's going to happen. It's going to be a turnover where you lost this amount of students that you're going to do it again. You love it, but kids are like, you know, like you get them for 5-6 years. You get a lot of kids that who who are targets, you know what I mean? Like who are a little bit different than other kids, or they have little quirks, and you make them fit into a place that they feel comfortable. They weren't good at any sports. They become good at this, and they become accepted in a group of where it's like I would say high testosterone, or kind of a place where you wouldn't expect, maybe, I wouldn't say nerdy, or just, every kid is different.
Right.
So every kid's like,
like introverted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see that kid really come out, and those are like that's the thing I like the most about teaching, and kids are 100% honest. So like what belt are you?
Purple.
So if you want to get your brown from me, there's always something underlying that you need from me. You know what I mean? Everything, like, so if I'm your coach, and everything that I'm teaching, there's always like an underlying, like, hey, like, I'm working for this. I'm learning from you, but I'm working for this to get this from you. Whereas kids, sometimes it's 100% just who they are. Like if they're happy with you, they're just 100% happy with you, because that's just their naturals. If they're upset with you or they're having a rough day, that's just 100% who they are. Kids don't have these masks that adults put on every single day to go from work, jiu-jitsu, to this, to that. It's 100%. So you know who you're talking to. Even if the kid is a pain in your butt, you at least know that kid's being 100% authentic.
Right.
And that's something that like, you don't really get as an adult dealing with other adults. Like even myself, I can't say, like, oh, I'm 100% authentic. No, there's like certain situations. If I walk into a bank, you know what I mean? Like I go into the bank and I have a question to ask. All of a sudden I am a much I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Sit down. Like, show me my link. Yeah, of course, because that's a different face I have to put on.
Right.
It's always going to be somewhat different with whoever you're exchanging conversation with, or whoever you're dealing with business with, or your fighters. Like my kids, I don't curse at. My fighters sometimes need to be yelled at. Sometimes they're screwing off. So it's like you're always molding yourself into whatever different, you're still yourself, but you're molding yourself. But with the kids, I can be I think that can be my most dynamic, and I can, and like, I don't think a lot of people would believe this if they came to my adult classes, but like I've done like where I've had like 3-year-olds, and like we do like T-Rex arms, and we do just kid stuff. We
basically play games.
Our underhook is, our underhook is Captain Underhook. So we do the hook, Captain Underhook, and you see you have like a bunch of 3-year-olds putting their Captain Hook, up in the air, and it's like and that's that kind of stuff that like I don't know why, because I understand that it's such an adult thing is to teach an underhook, but to make it into a silly kid thing so these kids can learn it, memorize it, and kind of have it happen is really cool.
Kids are interesting though. They're like, I think it's funny too, like Captain Underhook and T-Rex arms is a way for them to remember it, something that they can associate with and they can figure it out. But they're sponges too. They don't have all their, the previous years of experience to like mold their opinion or interfere with their ability to learn something. And I have coached kids in tournaments for my first coach. I was at a different academy that I'm at now for 7 years, and I'm at a new one. But for my previous coach, I coach kids in a tournament, and they're like, it's like playing a video game. You just tell them what to do, and they do it, and they're really good.
That's true.
And they're really good. I mean, they're just like take down and side control and submit, boom, done. Yeah. And it's like I'm like, look at these kids going like, why can't the adults do this? This is ridiculous, But but they're it's interesting how kids learn. They are little sponges, and they pick everything up, and they learn really quick, and they really get into it. And it's interesting. I have never had the opportunity to teach kids yet, but I look forward to doing it one day. I would really like to do it. That's actually like my thing is I want to become, just like again, I said I'm 50, and I want to get my black belt, obviously, but I want to become a really good coach. Yeah. Because I'm never going to be a world champion. Maybe I can go to Masters Worlds and try to win something, but I'm never going to be like, I don't have enough years left, to get in that other aspect of the sport. So hopefully I'll be able to roll for the rest of my life, but not competitively. I'm not going to be able to compete forever. Right. So that's my thing is I want to become a really good coach. And so I'm looking forward to one day being able to have a kids class or, and have my own academy or teach for somebody else and do that. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, once you start the adults and then you have the kids, your kind of brain changes a bit, like you love everything. You love to do everything that you're doing, but it's almost relaxing a lot of times just to do it with the kids because, and thank God my kids' classes are before my adults because like they pump me up, because you have to be loud. You have to be like, in order for them to recognize you and keep eyes on you, you have to be larger than you normally are.
Right.
You have to be, all right, everybody, this is what we're gonna, everybody stand up, you have to be so energized that it doesn't matter how tired you are or if like you're not feeling it that day. Once you start that engine, it kind of helps you go through your kids' classes to your adult classes with the same kind of energy. Then all of a sudden, you look at the clock, and you're like, "Shit, I'm done." Thank. I didn't see that coming. Yeah.
That's awesome. So that answered my last question. I was actually going to ask you why you stopped in the MMA, but it was an injury. Yeah, and that made sense. So you trained at you were a coach at American Top Team for a while, and you actually coached some champions like Kimbo Slice. What was that like? And what was it like to train Kimbo?
So I'm no longer with American Top Team. Just to let that be known.
Right.
But coaching Kimbo was a really good experience because coaching some other fighters, they weren't as open as Kimbo. So I feel like if Kimbo would have gotten involved into it in his 20s, like if he would have or the first time he had a fight and he would have gotten actual real training, he would be, I wouldn't say he'd be a champion, but I would say that he would be, he's memorable now, but he'd be memorable for more of the UFC career. I think he would have had a longer UFC career.
Right.
And he would have had, like coming into the title contention, because he was one of those people that if I'm your coach, he's going to listen. He's going to I helped him with his jiu-jitsu. So he was fighting Ken Shamrock. And I watched so much tape on Ken Shamrock. And I watched, his heel hook entries, which are really, really rudimentary, like, I don't mean to crap on Ken Shamrock, but heel hooks and leg locks were really rudimentary back in the day when he was leg locking people.
Right.
It wasn't this honey hole inverted, it wasn't like, it wasn't all that. The entries were like, I am in your guard, I'm going to fall backwards and I'm going to attack your foot. So, I didn't have much to go on other than, like heel hook defense, toe hold defense. And we ended up getting information that I think we didn't get like spy information. I think Ken Shamrock did this to himself. He ended up saying that he was training with the old Lions Den. And so I'm like, okay, I know why he's doing that because he's the big dog in the gym and he needs to stay the big dog in the gym because he needs to bring the guys that he's over top of to come in again.
Right.
And it wasn't like he brought in Kyotera. It wasn't like he brought in like any notable, like he didn't even have to be Kyotera, any notable black belt that has a new game that's been around that didn't stop in 1990 or didn't stop in 2005. Like he was with the same crew. So we expected it was going to be the same attacks. And we ended up actually the night before because Kimbo always worked out like at 3 a.m.
Really?
So yeah, 3 a.m. we'd be working out down like in the room downstairs. or the hotel, whatever, the hotel workout area. And I was like, started getting like a really bad feeling that I didn't cover all the bases, you know, like as a coach. I was like, shit. I was like, hey, let me show you this one thing to get out of a rear naked choke. He's like, nah, man, I'm done. I'm done, dude. He's like, the fight's tomorrow. I'm done. I'm like, all right, what if I said that I could get out of, and there's this guy Squeak. He's a really, really big dude, you know. He's one of the bodyguards to, there's a whole bodyguard system going on. And he put me in a rear naked choke and I got out twice. And they were all making fun of him, you know, and it's like, and so he's like, okay, show me how you did it. Right. And the biggest thing was that I would go, all right, Ken Shamrock, rear naked choke. Ken Shamrock's not going to do that behind the neck. He's going to do the old fashioned, like hand on the head, rear naked choke. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just basically pulling the arm down, freeing my neck, you know, and then pulling the arm over. So I would say, so it was like the fights at maybe 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. From that moment, 3 a.m., when he learned that defense is the exact move he used to get out of the rear naked choke. Right. And that was a super good feeling, because I always had these weird premonitions, like I didn't do this right, or I didn't do this enough. You know, it sucks when we lose fights and I don't have premonitions that we didn't work enough. Right. But there's always something that comes in, like, hey, this is gonna happen. You know, like this is like, and it's just funny the way that we did it with kind of making it a bet. You know, like that there's no way, like if he locks this rear naked choke in, he's not going to finish me. I guarantee you. And he's like, all right, bet. Right. I'll watch now. You know? So yeah, working with him, he was probably one of the most super humble people on earth. And like when everybody says that, you know, like, of course he had hood elements of himself. Right. He wasn't fake, but he was honestly a true human and loyal to people that he was around. He wasn't a know-it-all. He wasn't just like, I don't want to know this, I don't want to do this, because a lot of guys can do that in their camp. Yeah. That's why it really sucks, is because like I can't do anything. I can't say, like, if I'm disagreeing with my fighter, the fighter wins because he can ultimately, and especially in a place where it's you know, like where you have 40 coaches or 30 coaches, he can replace you. Right. You know what I mean? And like sometimes you have to take that and be like, all right, listen, man, I'm not gonna work on you with this fight if that's your approach. You know, because I feel like we'll lose, and I can't sign on to being a part of this. But a lot of guys will. A lot of guys will just keep their mouth shut, and sometimes the fighter is good enough, they just win. You know, like no matter how bad how much danger there is, because that person's not ready for certain things, they just win because they're very good fighters. You know, like they have like that knockout power, or they're just lucky. And then they keep going until they hit rock bottom, and then all of a sudden they don't know why they hit bottom. You know, they can't figure it out because they haven't been listening to their coaches. They haven't, you know, they've been doing it their way. Right. You know, and it's like, it goes for anything, not taking people's advice, not taking any kind of critical, you know, critique is going to, you know, like it's going to at some point be your undoing. Right. You know, because you can't see everything. You think you can, but you can't see everything. I think that's probably something, you know, you look at Conor McGregor a bit, and I believe John Kavanagh, not knowing how good John Kavanagh is, because John Kavanagh has Conor McGregor and doesn't have a stable, you know. So Conor McGregor is like a 1 in a million athlete. Yeah. And plus Conor's own brain is, I can recognize that he is that smart. He is putting together things. He understands the fight game. He understands like the invisible lines between, you know, like he knew the thing with Jose Aldo. He knew Jose Aldo was going to overextend. And that was why he was like going back and forth and almost pulling him into to throw that punch so he could counter.
Mhm.
And so he is that smart of a fighter, and he rises to the occasion, but I don't know how many what coaches he's had currently, but he didn't train for certain fights the way he should have trained.
Yeah. Like Diaz.
Yeah, like Diaz. I mean, he trained he fought the right way the second time with Diaz. Kicking, the way to beat Diaz is to kick Diaz in the legs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Diaz is one of my favorite fighters.
Same.
But he has never fixed that problem ever. Like he's leg heavy and he doesn't check the kicks that often, and so you can beat the crap out of and hats off to guys like Daya or Matt or Mike Brown or whatever with the fight with Connor, because you take an explosive human being in Connor who's fast and you start kicking him in the calf, and you basically you had a Ferrari on flat tires. It's like
basically crippling.
So basically it doesn't matter if you're just a Subaru Impreza or whatever, whatever race car that's like you can buy here,
right?
Then you have a Ferrari. Hey, if the Ferrari has two flat tires, you're going to win that race. And so it was good planning and good and good coaching on that side. You got to ask, what's Connor's comeback? What's his, is he going to listen to coaches, or he's going to go out there and believe, which he's done, which has helped him in life, believed in himself so much that no matter what happens, he'll win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what are your, speaking of Connor, what are your impressions of his jiu-jitsu skill? Because I've always heard
I believe that so we're talking about athletes,
right?
And a lot of jiu-jitsu people will never understand this if they have not been around a UFC athlete, right? And so oh man, like most brown belts could tap out Connor. I don't think so. Not unless you are a competitive brown belt. Unless and I'm talking about the adult level,
right? And top level, yeah.
And you're like one of those guys that's making it through the first and second rounds, because an MMA athlete is so athletic and so fast and so hard to control that they're not just like easy targets, so they have to understand, so let's say Connor's know-how is at a purple belt level, because he's been in the game long enough that he knows how to do arm bars. He's not going to do arm bars. Right. He knows how to do rear naked chokes. He knows how to do all these things. I think, his jiu-jitsu is probably, if you rolled with him no-gi, a lot of people would be surprised, just the way that he was dealing with, he gave Khabib a pretty hard time holding him down. He also trained really well at pummeling the legs and getting out of that. Khabib takes you down and you're bad at jiu-jitsu, or you're bad on the ground. You're not you don't give that much of a fight to Khabib. Yeah. You're done. It's over.
Yeah.
If you suck, you're
done.
Suck, he's going to
put a fork in you.
You're done right away. Connor did really well defending, taking damage from Khabib and getting up to a seated position where Khabib couldn't strike and had to control. So there's modalities of me controlling somebody, right? Where it takes both my hands usually, and I can't punch them in the face. And then it takes where I'm not controlling them with my hands because they're flat on their back. I don't have to hold them with both hands, and I can punch them, And so I think, looking at that, people forget a lot about the Khabib fight and how, Khabib won and controlled him, but it was not an easy, like he just didn't take him down and go to mount and finish him.
Right.
And I think with the Nate Diaz thing was that you got somebody who was exhausted, rocked. I think he gave his back like an idiot.
Yeah.
And I think he gave his back maybe because he was so out of it and so rocked out that he wanted out. Or just like, screw this, you know, like I'm done. You know, like, who knows? It can only be through the fighter's mentality of why he gave his back that to a jiu-jitsu person who's after you're rocked. You know, and that kind of like I said in the beginning, like you fight, you beat somebody up until they give you the submission, like because they want out. They like, I've lost this fight. If you put the choke in, okay,
I'll let you have it just because I want to get out of this. Have this over.
I want to get out of this. This is bad.
Yeah. And and I think that's how I asked, you know, that's how I meant to ask the question. It probably came out the wrong way, but I was like, more all things being equal as an MMA athlete with all the athleticism and everything, well, you know, what we were impressions of his jiu-jitsu compared to like other MMA athletes. You know, it's because that's always been what people have said about, I at least on my understanding, what people have said is that that's probably one of his weaker skills of all the skills. But like you said, in all hindsight, you know, when all things being equal, it's not a weak skill. I mean, he's not weak at it. He's just, you know,
he's not using it as offense.
Yeah. He's more of a striker, in my opinion.
Him being on top and trying to submit would be out of character for him because he does everything else so well. Why roll the dice on something that is not your bread and butter? Right.
Who is your like your top 3 MMA fighters? Who are your favorite MMA fighters? Top 3?
Well, they're not top. So
no, I'm saying your top. I don't.
My top. My favorite MMA fighters are Joachim Hansen from the Pride days, Caro Parisian from earlier UFC days, and Nick Diaz. I think I can probably throw Nick and Nate in there because there's been such a long time that Nick hasn't fought, that Nate took over, basically fighting the same way that Nick fought. So it's like, okay, they're so similar that, like, because in the beginning it was Nick all the way, and then Nate was like a WEC. He was like very young, Ultimate Fighter, and I was a Nick fan. And then Nick stopped fighting so much, and then Nate kind of took over. So Nick and Nate, I think that I can use them as one.
I actually saw Nate at a tournament, my last blue belt tournament, I want to say it was maybe in Fremont, but I weighed in and I weighed in too heavy, and I was like, God damn it. So I was running around. It took 45 minutes to run. I was running for 45 minutes to try to make weight. I had to weigh 2 more times. I finally made weight on the 3rd one, and I had to go right into my first match. It was an interesting day. I lost my first match, won my second match, got bronze. And after it was all over, I was upstairs walking around, and I saw him, and I was like, hey, that's Nate Diaz. And he's a lot taller than I thought than he looks like on TV. He's really tall. But I didn't bother him or walk up to him. I was like, you know, I'm not going to be that guy. But it's just interesting. You said that, and it popped in my head that I remember seeing it. I'm going to pull these headphones out because I've got a lot of feedback. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So let me turn up the volume on my end. All right, cool. All right, there we go. I don't want that feedback messing with the recording. So on your website, I read about the About Us passage, and I really believe as a whole, it's a testament to your commitment as a teacher. But one part really stuck out to me, and that was, can you explain your mantra of treat every student in every class like it's the most important lesson you will ever teach?
It is. That stuck out to me. Reason being is that you don't know what class hooks somebody. You don't know what day somebody gets the armbar that they've never gotten. You don't know. It's accumulation. Like, people don't realize how much of accumulation of different times they've been in the gym to make something manifest and happen, you know? And I have everybody working at different levels and different skills, and one person is getting smashed, and their best day ever was not getting smashed, you know, like having guard, almost getting a triangle, like, you know, like almost having the arm bar against one person.
Right.
And that was maybe that day that they got that wasn't the day that wasn't because of the class that I taught that day, but was because of the class that I taught 3 days before that. Because I took each class seriously. I took each person's improvement, that I know that it's cumulative, and I know that if I can make each class the best class that I can possibly teach. Like going into classes, a lot of times I'm stressed out. Like I'm not like as I sit down. I don't do what a lot of jiu-jitsu teachers, in my opinion, used to do. I don't know if I'm not pointing fingers. I'm sure there's a lot of them that do it. Arm bar, kimura, triangle, scissor sweep. And it's almost like they teach you maybe 25 moves, and those are all on repeat. It's just rinse and repeat. After like the 25th move, it goes back to the first move. You know, and jiu-jitsu is so large now is that it's almost impossible to do that. But you don't want to go so crazy that they never get to the techniques that you teach, you know. And I just really like, I want the students who I teach to enjoy that class. And it's, you know, like they would enjoy. And the funny thing is probably this, they would enjoy the class if I just said, everybody's rolling tonight. You know, like they're like, yeah. You know, like that's all we're doing. We're just going to roll, you know, but I want them to enjoy the learning part of it, because that's how you get good, and that's how you get better. And that's what class is. You know, like we're one of the only classes that like where you get to have a fun, like recess at the end of class. Like where it's like, okay, now it's recess, you know, play with your friends, you know? But I want I want to say I seek approval, or I want this to notice with other students that they're enjoying what I've taught, that this is something that they understand, that they like. This could be a part of their game, and they're tuned in, you know. And sometimes you hit gold and sometimes you don't, but I would say going into every class, I take it seriously to try to hit gold.
Nice. I think that's really important. I mean, it's, if you're teaching and people are, you know, I don't know. I don't think it's even so much about the paying for the service. I think you know, when you pay, you're paying to, you know, help pay the rent, you help, you know, take care of the lights, the utilities, all the things to keep the place there. But you know, it's important when you have a teacher that cares enough that, you know, puts the effort in and really tries to give you good instruction and cares about your development. That's
and listen, capitalism to an extent is the problem but it's not it's why we have so many people in jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is fun. And whether or not it's fun for the first 30 minutes because you're learning, or you hate the 30 minutes of class, we have so many people because everybody rolls at the end. Right. Mainly, if this was run like a wrestling practice, or if this was run like, you know, like an Olympic caliber, like team, you may not roll or do anything similar. You may just be doing drills and specific positional training over and over and over and over and over and over and over, you know, and that is not going to be a successful business. That's the biggest issue, is that you have to think of, as a school owner, how do I sneak in them getting better and learning in with all the fun as well? You know, like, because they're paying for a good quality jiu-jitsu, but they're also paying to have a good time and have fun, you know? And so it's one of those things where I don't run I'm not a college coach. I'm not where getting cut is a possibility. Nobody on my mats has the possibility of getting cut, you know, for the team. You know, none of my guys who are not listening are going to get benched in an NFL game, you know, or like, you know, get fined by the president or something for missing practice. You know, it's like, that's the hardest thing I would say about coaching is that you say like, oh, well, you look at all the great coaches and you see, it's like, no, all those guys that showed up on the college teams, all those guys that showed up on like NBA, whatever professional league where they're being paid millions, they show up because they have a contract with that team that they're supposed to show up.
Mhm.
And if they don't listen to the coach, then they can get fined. If they don't show up to practice, they're getting fined. It's also a lot harder on the coach because if the coach fails to turn over a season or whatever, they're gone.
Right.
But it's a lot easier for a coach to make people better and make it much a better team much faster with those rules in place, rather than you're paying somebody for a service and you have to negotiate with that person. Like, let's learn a little bit, like let's do a little bit of learning today. Let's do a little bit of drilling today, and then we'll do the funds, and then we'll do the rolling.
I don't know. I mean, in my personal opinion, I like the drilling. I like situational drilling. I mean, I'm trying to get. I study outside of class. I watch instructionals. Like even yesterday, I went to class in the morning, did open mat for an hour and a half. I came home, I lifted weights for an hour, and then I took a shower. And then I spent most of the day yesterday just sitting on my recliner watching YouTube on my TV, watching Danaher like videos, just on gi stuff, because I only do gi once a day now. I'm really doing once a week now. I'm doing mainly no gi right now, and there was I felt like I was getting a little bit rusty, and I wanted to tune up my thing, so I spent time watching it. But I like the drilling, and I like to trying to get my skill better. I don't think that you can. I think that there are people who argue that says you can get better just rolling, but I don't think that's the majority. I really don't.
You can get better just rolling. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
But how much better?
That's what I'm saying. A little bit better, maybe. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to put the work in. You got to put the work in. And when you do drill, I find that I can sometimes watch things, and I can later on do them live, and it works pretty well. But that's the way I'm starting to figure out that that's how I learn the best. Is sometimes is watching a lot of stuff, putting it in my brain, and then going and trying it. And if I can drill it, even better. But sometimes I don't always get a chance to drill it because I don't have control of the class. But that's what I'm trying lately. But I think the drilling is very important. I think it is. And actually, that could go into our next question. What's your favorite modality? Do you like to do drilling, situational rolling, or just rolling as far as the majority of your
like situational rolling a lot. The problem with situational, so we did a lot of situational rolling, we'll do dental floss, which means the lapel underneath the leg, half guard. Okay, if the person sweeps, they stay in, that kind of stuff. But where that kind of falls apart sometimes is that you have people that have no idea how to do it. You know what I mean? It's if you put somebody in a situational rolling, and you go, okay, you're in side control, you have to get out. The person who's a brown belt is going to get out of everything, and the person that's white belt that's trying to hold them in side control is not learning anything at that point. And so it has to be a mixture. You can't just be positional, and it can't just be drilling with a partner. That's the hard and I don't think that it can be done on a calendar either. I don't think you can say today's positional, we're going to do tournament training, we're going to we do tournament Tuesdays. Sometimes we used to do them every Tuesday, but we just had a huge drop in attendance,
right?
Where we used to do what's it called? Brackets. So the elimination brackets, and people, people get, when they roll with somebody and they get caught, nobody sees it. But when they roll with somebody and there's only 2 matches going on on the mats, and everybody's waiting for their next bracket to happen, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more personal.
Right.
But that's what we do in order to get people prepared for what it's going to feel like in a competition. It's going to matter to the other person. All of a sudden, the guy that submits the other guy all the time only wins by 2 points. It's crazy. It's he catches me all the time with that. Doesn't catch you when it's tournament Tuesday, because everybody's being super careful. You know, like everybody's being, you know, everybody's laser focused. But yeah, I would say that you have to mix it, because unless you have everybody at the same skill level, not skill level, all at the same idea that they know De La Riva. They all know De La Riva, and they all know how to pass De La Riva. Then you can say, yeah, positional sparring. Let's go, guys. You know, like, so I think you can do that with high level, and that's why you can do it with college athletes, because all collegiate athletes should know about the same amount of wrestling that a coach is teaching. You know, like, you should know basic stuff. And so if you put them in a basic, not basic, you put them in a position, they should understand how to escape or how to turn it into an offense. It's not true, because in jiu-jitsu, we don't necessarily have that. You're not going to tell white belt he can't come to class, you know, because he doesn't know De La Riva. And I actually find that putting white belts in classes with purple, brown, and black makes them better faster. Yeah. You know, because the more they train, the more they're around those guys, the quicker they evolve. You know, and so I couldn't answer that question without saying, like, all of it. All of it's important, and you have to realize what's in the room when you're doing what. Like, you have to say, there's too many white belts in the room. You know, there's too many guys that don't know enough in the room that this is going to be a productive day for the higher belts or even the lower belts. So it's good when you notice that everybody knows what you're talking about, and you're like, okay, good, let's do it. So yeah, sometimes I go right from teaching a move into positional drilling that move. That's often a good time.
Yeah, I like that. Now, that's particularly what I was actually getting on too, with positional drilling. In the past, like we did positional drilling on a 50-50 technique the other day, and drilling it, I could do it. It was basically a technical stand-up to get out of 50-50. But then as soon as we went live with it, with the situational drilling, really had a lot of difficulty with it. And I was analyzing it afterwards, and I was thinking, I think maybe my knee position was at the wrong position, because I really couldn't stand up. I was trying to, like, hide my heel too much, so it made my knee go out a 45-degree angle instead of being straight up when I tried to stand. And so I was testing like a structure to stand from, so it just really didn't work well. Now, what I do now is I keep trying to do the same thing, right? What I used to do in the past is, if in situational training, I screwed myself, where I would, if the technique wasn't working for me, I would modify or adapt or change to something else just to win, right? So I let my ego get involved in it way too much, and I was have to win, right? So now I'm trying to be more mature about it and smarter, and think, like, when I do those types of drills, no, I just want to work on this one technique. This is all I want to do. If I screw it up over and over again, then I screw it up, and just figure out why I'm screwing up and fix it and make it work. And that's where I feel is the benefit of that. And I think that, you know, in my own experience, people can do situational drilling, but just not grasp the meaning behind it like I didn't, because it was all ego driven. You know, it's just, we got to win. I don't want to get, you know.
I understand that completely.
So let's talk a little about self-defense. You're saying your jiu-jitsu lineage is with Carlos Gracie, Carlson Gracie, Ricardo Liborio, and yourself. And you mentioned on your website that you teach self-defense, specifically women's self-defense and self-defense. What is the difference to you between women's self-defense and conventional self-defense? Is the conventional self-defense Gracie self-defense, or is it something different?
I would say conventional self-defense would be understanding jiu-jitsu and having boxing.
Okay.
You know, most people are going to throw wild haymakers, and if you know how to block, number one, evade, move your head. Number two, if you know how to throw a straight punch that's kinetically, you know, strong, mechanically strong, you're going to get there faster, and you're going to probably finish the person a lot quicker than if you're both slugging away. And knowing how to take somebody down and controlling somebody. With women's self-defense, the biggest issue is you're now dealing with not a fight. So we're not dealing with boxing. We're not dealing with arm bars. We're not dealing with triangle chokes. We're dealing with how to make ourselves unable to be controlled.
Mhm.
And if I can make a woman unable to be controlled, unable to be contained. So that means if I wrap my arms around somebody and they can break my grip, and they can open up my grip, or that they can't take me to the ground if I have my arms wrapped, you know, like and they wait for my arms to open back up.
Mhm.
If they can't control me, they cannot assault me, right? Because to assault somebody, you need to have full control and also pretty much have that person at exhaustion, you know, and to be able to be taken down, get back up, be taken down, get back up, be bear hugged, get out of the bear hug. And we're not talking throwing strikes. We're not talking, because a lot of these people, they say, well, man, poke them in the eyes. Well, if, you know, like, not to say that like I can kind of tune myself into a rapist's mind, but they're probably suspecting the three major things that have been taught to stop this. Unless it's just like unless that person is on drugs and has an out of mind experience that they're just going to attack this woman. And this is, we're saying that this is a pre-planned moment, right? Maybe they've been thinking about it, or they've done it before, where they do this type of thing. They know you're going to go for the eyes, the throat, or the balls. Those are the three things that we're taught. So you think that poke him in the eyes is going to stop it. This person's probably well prepared for that. You're gonna try to scratch his eyes out. They're probably ready for that. And that's going to cause a little bit more of a problem, because now you got somebody who, I believe almost all rapists in some manner are on a toddler level, you know, like a toddler mindset of like, they want this and this is what they're going to take, you know, like they're
Right.
If a toddler hits a toddler, what the toddler is going to do back, it's going to hit the other kid back. Mm-hmm. There's no like, it's like, oh, hit me, oh, I hit you. Mm-hmm. You know, and the last thing we need is, oh, you did this to me that physically causes pain. I'm going to do something physically cause pain to you, which they will win. Mm-hmm. They will win because they're bigger, they're heavier, they're stronger, they have more weight behind them. If you hit me, maybe you knock me out, or I hit you back and I clear your, like my punch and a woman's punch are going to be much different.
Right.
And if you kick me in the groin, who's to say that that's not going to be the thing that makes me destroy you? Mm-hmm. Right? Pick you up, you know, beat your brains in. Mm-hmm. You know, like there's no getting out of that. So while there's no strikes being thrown, I don't always say let's strike. You know what I mean? Like, let's not strike until there's time to strike. Right. You know, like if you have to do an up kick, okay. If like this is like okay, I'm doing well. Like I can get out of here. Like all I have to do is kick this guy in the groin, technical stand up and run. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe, you know, like maybe that was the time. But in the middle of defending yourself, you want to take it to where you're better. And if you're better at not being controlled, you're going to have success in escaping. Right. So like if I can't control you and I keep losing control, at some point this person is going to either give up, right? Because we have to get inside of a rapist's mind. There has to be a timetable, unless you're like locked in a dungeon, like you're in you're like, you know, like you hear about these crazy things where people are like in cellars of people's houses. That's a different situation. You know, like we're talking about, like, this is,
the guy breaks into somebody's apartment, you know.
Yeah.
The whole like Richard Ramirez type thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to expect, you're screaming, you should be screaming your head off the whole entire time. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to rape somebody, you're saying, how long has this been going on? Mm-hmm. How many people is there anybody coming? You know what I mean? Like you're also playing time into that factor. The longer it takes for them to control you, the louder and more aggressive screaming that's coming from you. You have to play into that person's mind that says, hey, this is not good. I have to get out of here. This is somebody that I'm unable to control. And this is somebody that's been taking 5 minutes way too long. Like if it is a 5 minute, if that's an insane amount of time, that's a long time. If you can hold somebody off for 5 minutes, man, somebody's coming, I hope.
Yeah.
And like, or you're making your way closer to people, like, so you're escaping, they're trying to control you. We're always making sure that our escape, like our not being controlled, is that we're moving closer to where we want to be. Right. So if that happens in a parking lot, you don't want to make it to your car. You want to make it to the grocery store that you just left. So every time that you get up, you get maybe 5 feet closer, 5 feet closer, 5 feet closer, until you are within help.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. That's actually a really good explanation. That makes a lot of sense. The whole striking thing, not striking, and the time element. And yeah, it's excellent. That's excellent. So going back to jiu-jitsu, actually, because I want to go back and forth a little bit and break up the conversation a little bit. But do you prefer gi or no gi jiu-jitsu? In your opinion, what are the major differences between the two, and how can one complement the other? For the average enthusiast, what percentage of each would you recommend and why? I ask everybody this question because it's just a question. So
I'm more of a gi guy because I was more of a no gi guy. Like I didn't put the gi on until 8 or 9 years later. I would say, as far as MMA goes, gi is more functional. Because it deals with control. It deals with holding somebody down, it deals with making grips. And they can say, oh, well, you don't have grips in no gi. Yeah, but if you get good enough at jiu-jitsu, you realize one grip on the pants is very similar to a grip on the hamstring. Like you learn your way around, like where the body is and how to control somebody's, ankle. Like you learn all that the same way. Whereas in no gi, I feel like it's become more, it's almost become more like when people used to bitch about 50-50 in the gi and be like, that's not realistic. You know what I mean? It's like, to a degree, no gi has become semi, like there's a subculture of leg locks and how to get into these leg locks, and filtering through them until you get to your lock, until you get to your breaking position. You don't really see that too much in MMA, just because not to say I don't think it works. I just don't think it works enough of the times to where you wouldn't get your brain smashed in.
Right.
I also enjoy the gi because I like making people do stupid stuff. So with the gi, you can kind of do highlight things. So you can like lift them up, make them fly over your head. You know what I'm saying? You can like twist them up with their gi. Like basically, it's fun because you can really get creative with how you control somebody. I think with the no gi, I think that a gi guy can transfer into no gi easier than a no gi guy could transfer into the gi. Not to say that they would. And the only reason why a gi guy would transfer to no gi would be for either MMA or because that's where now all these super fights are being done at. Which is kind of sad because jiu-jitsu is fun. Like for people that enjoy the gi, jiu-jitsu is fun to watch. It's fun to watch gi jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like when I was watching like Kobo Podios, you had like Lucas Lepre on there and you had Leandro Lowe in the same bracket, and then like in round robins, those are super cool matches, and they're going to see some really technical gi jiu-jitsu. But right now, like with the whole Gordon Ryan, I think really made the movement because people want to see if he could be beaten, and then it's like you look at so there's a guy Johnny Tama who's traditionally a gi guy, and he just beat Edwin Najimy with a heel hook at Fight to Win and won the title there. You know, like I was talking to him a little bit about it. You know, he says, I can basically do any jiu-jitsu. You know, like you just got to show me. You know, like once you show me, I'll learn how to do it. But I think that what the biggest thing that no-gi guys will miss is how to slow the game down. Right? So learning how to slowly pass guard rather than having to go fast. Learning how to like control, slowly move your way to a new position, get to side control, slow. And I think they've also taken away, like, you know, the submission onlys. They've taken away what Don Hurt just said is they've taken away, okay, side control and mount are bad positions to be in. You take away all of that stuff, and now the person who's on bottom, and you're like, oh, but it's submission only. Like, yeah, but the guy doesn't have to do anything because he's not worried, because he's not losing.
Right.
If I'm not losing and I'm in side control, I'm losing. My ego is losing because I've been trained not to let people go to side control. But I'm not losing, and I don't have to make any sudden movements that are going to hopefully put me back in my guard or put him in a compromising situation because I'm losing by points, so I need to get up or I need to get my guard.
Yeah.
And so it takes away the submissions. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather see my fighters get submitted if they're down by 5 points because they're being aggressive and they realize they have to make up for the points that they've lost, than to see them stall out and not win at all, or still lose. I'd rather see them lose by submission because they tried to make something happen in their favor to get it going, rather than them kind of like just like hold on to half guard, like while they're down by 5.
Right.
And and so I think that brings more. If more people thought like I did, we'd have more exciting gi matches. Nobody wants to get submitted, so they never want to say that guy submitted them. But it's like, man, L is an L, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I watched some of your matches on YouTube. There were exciting matches. They're good matches. I was like, it was impressed. Yeah, you don't. It's a constant movement. It was like, it was a good match. It was like, wow.
I want highlight stuff, and I want also if it's going to come down to a judge's decision, or if it's going to come down to points, I want to get a submission. I want to get a submission, or I want to do something crazy to get a dominant position and turn that score over in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You hit on a lot of things. It's funny too, because like I said, I had done all gi previously, and now I'm starting to do no gi. So it's the opposite of what you did. But even when I do no gi, though, I still use like my gi strategies as far as passing guard and control and everything. I mean, it's like I enjoy the fact that now I'm getting to learn the lower body attacks, because I never really did that before. We only had straight ankle lock and toe hold, basically, and knee bar. And now I'm learning all the heel hooks and all the things, and it's really interesting to me, and it's fun. But it's not something that it's like I would like it to be more of the whole thing of where like Dean, the listener said, where you can go up and down the body. You know, I like that idea where you just have all these weapons and you can go up and down, and it's not like you're not focusing like either north or south. It's like you're just whatever I can get to, I'm going to take it. You know, I like that idea. But yeah, so I just want to bounce it off you. I ask everybody that question because it's really, it's something that's always in the back of my head, and I like it. My personal opinion, I think they both have their advantages. Like gi teaches you excellent defense because of the friction, and no gi teaches you very good submissions because of lack of control. So you have to have the really the tight technique. So you put a lot of good content on your social media platforms, and you come up with a lot of innovative techniques, and you have discussed being in the lab with Liborio in the past to try to develop new strategies and techniques. Can you share your strategies or provide a basic mental framework you use to explore and create techniques and concepts? Like, what's your process?
Man, a lot of times I fall into stuff like I'll be teaching something
Mhm.
and I'm teaching it. As I'm teaching it and I'm saying things like, as I'm showing the class, like, things are kind of like popping out to me.
Mhm.
I'm like, like I kind of see another avenue. And a lot of times, it's done from like, I have some very good students who, they'll ask a question.
Mhm.
And the question is perfectly pointed because it's the question is like, hey, what if the guy turns? I'm like, a guy shouldn't be able to turn, and the guy can turn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's see here. You know what I mean? And like, so then from there, I have to let whatever jiu-jitsu knowledge is already in me try to figure out what's there.
Mhm.
And sometimes it came down to, like, so the Darce killer, it came down to having an immediate need solution to this, because we had a fighter fighting a guy who's fighting Vicente Luque, who has, like, I don't know, maybe 5 Darces, probably 6 now, because he just beat Mike Chiesa.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, we have to make sure that we don't get, submitted. That's what he's going to do. He's a Darce guy. He does it standing. He does it ever. So there was immediate need, and it was just kind of like almost banging my head against a wall constantly until I could find, like, this doesn't work. This does not work. This does not work. I'm kind of letting my body that understands jiu-jitsu kind of try to figure it, like, weasel its way out and figure its way out through it. With other techniques, sometimes I have a base of something, and like the Heisengard, I had an entry. I had a problem with the omoplata, and I had a problem with guys posturing on the omoplata, and opening up to the Heisengard, was kind of like one of the things that kind of opened up all the gateways of different things that I could do with the Heisengard. And then, it's awesome, and sometimes it's not so great, because sometimes you get stuck in a hole and you're like, what can I do from this? Why is there more things here? And so you'll play with the idea, and you're like, this can't be the end. I can't have gotten to the end of it, and you'll watch somebody maybe in a similar position, or maybe somebody that is using a similar concept, and you're like, okay, is that area that he's doing that in, does that have any kind of, will that transfer over to what I'm trying to do? And so watching different guys and seeing, like, different mechanics, because everything is mechanics, right? Like, so that's where you have to break it down to, is you have to break everything down into mechanics. And you go, okay, if that works mechanically, I should say that should work mechanically on what I'm trying to put on the area that I'm trying to do. Sometimes it works perfectly and it fits in, and sometimes it's just a dead end, or it's a dead end for now, because I'm just not at the level of where or at the level of understanding that position to where it pops out, and plus, you're one person, you're one person focusing on, so you have your understanding of jiu-jitsu, you have your body's understanding of jiu-jitsu. Then you also have all the years of your training, but it kind of sometimes put blinders on you. You know what I mean? Like, because I've seen, like, I've purple belt Juan, or a guy like Clay or Justin or these are some of the guys in my class. I have Fernando and trying Johnny, different guys, Michael and George, just thinking of guys that helped me out, and they'll ask a question, or they'll have, like, they'll have something there that I missed. You know what I mean? And I just missed it, maybe because I was too focused on teaching what I was teaching. Like, so, like, I'm like, I got to teach this, and this is what I got to get over to people. And then they find something in the middle of it, because I'm not looking past that. I'm not exploring that position right now. I'm explaining that position, and their brains go, oh, well, there's this. And I'm like, you're damn right. There's that. That's right. That looks pretty good. I'm like, what do you think I should do? And I said, I think you should keep trying that.
Yeah. Keep doing that.
I said, like, I'll give him like, oh, maybe there's an issue with this. Like, like there's a possibility that could happen wrong. Like, but if it's working for you, keep at it and see if somebody stops it or see if you can make it better. And then let's look at it again. So it's kind of like I do that with my students a lot, is that they'll show me something that they found, and sometimes it's something really good. And sometimes it's something that I wouldn't necessarily do myself, but it's working. And I'm like, and I can't see a reason why, like I would choose a different path, but I can't see a reason why it would stop working for them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, keep playing that in your game until somebody stops it, fix it, or realize that it's not as great as you thought it was. And you got to toss it.
Right.
We've all done that in jiu-jitsu, that you've had to toss several things out, that just don't fit.
Right. Cut the fat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever like hit a technique on accident, like, and actually got the submission and sort of fell into that? And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then tried to start using it and actually developed into something?
I would say no. I would say I wish my brain worked like that. I will hit things that I've never hit before. Mm-hmm. I will do things that I've never done before. But damn if I couldn't find my way back to that position. Mm-hmm. You know what I so there's been times like where I've done something like, well, that was genius. I should give myself a round of applause. Let's go back. And I can't remember where my foot was. That guy's arm's a little bit different. His head's up a little bit more now. And it's like, and so like those are probably the most frustrating to do is to hit something that is different and like that kind of came at the all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you were able to kind of figure something out and make something work. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden trying to recreate that exact scene, and it's super messy. You come back and it's like super messy. You're like, no. Was your hand up or down? You're like, right. I think it was down. You're like, all of a sudden you're trying to like put something back together that was like was done in a shimmer, Well,
here, let me. I'll tell you what happened, and you tell me what you think. So, I was in half guard, and I beat the knee shield and switched back, and the other guy had his hand on the mat. So I put a Kimura. I grabbed with a Kimura, and I started what
over top of him.
Yeah, over the top. Yeah. So I've got Kimura. I'm on top, past the knee shield, and I'm bringing my left knee up over his hips to push out, and then fall to T-Kimura over his head. Well, I put my knee up and I started to push, and something happened and I fell forward. So I kept the Kimura and I forward rolled into the bottom of half guard, and I Kimura and I submitted it. Yeah. Kimura. So I was like, and I did it on accident. But I was like, that really freaking worked. I wonder if I could actually develop that into something and make that a submission.
Well, 100% with the Kimura. The Kimura is a funny technique. Mm-hmm. Is that the Kimura? So the Kimura trap itself is wherever you go with the Kimura is controlling a very large part of the body, right? So like the shoulders are rotational, the hips are rotational. So you got to control hips and shoulders basically. And everything else is just connected to your hips and shoulders, right? So like your elbows and your hands or whatever. And so when you're controlling the Kimura, number one, they have to respect it. So they have to keep it tight to their body. Right. So that makes it easier to rotationally control somebody. So like with the Kimura, man, you can roll around up and down. You can almost like you're in space. As long as you have good control of that Kimura, that Kimura lock is going to take you to a lot of different places. So like, yeah, there's been some things with the Kimura that are ridiculously, like that could be a complete different series. Like you could take Kimura into a whole nother, and it's almost, like Kimuras are like that. Omoplatas are like that. Those are controlling large parts of the body. A large, it's connected to your spine. So everything has to move with it, So Kimuras, omoplatas, man, there's so much stuff out there that could probably happen. like that you could hit on your own. Yeah, I definitely could see that with the Kimura, and definitely see that with the omoplata. I would say as far as like things like I've never seen those things happen in like in a blink of an eye.
Right.
Like I hit something I've never seen, or it's just so hard because you're in the middle of a roll.
Right.
You know, and everything has to be almost dynamically perfect. You know, to recreate that position, to understand what mechanics were actually in play.
Absolutely. I mean, in half the time, some of the time you can't remember all the submission, what submission you got or how you got it, or exactly how it happened and it was accidental. Yeah. Or it just fell in, or like almost like the other person did it to themselves.
Yep.
They made a mistake and did it to themselves. Yeah. So you brought up the Heisen guard earlier, and that brings me to my next topic, is you produce several instructionals. Yeah. Like for the listeners, he's produced the Darce Killer, the Hasten Guard, Flower Power, shit your instructor never showed you, Unfuck Your Jiu-Jitsu, and I can never say Alcei. How do you say it? How do you say that?
Acai.
Acai, that's it. Acai free. I've been training jiu-jitsu for all these years and I still can't say acai. All these instructionals except so for all these instructionals except shit your instructor never showed you and acai free are available on BJJ Fanatics. They're at their website, BJJ Fanatics, and all this.
So shit your instructor never showed you, I think, is there too.
Is it there too now?
Okay. Yeah, it's like they didn't like I use the word shit.
Oh, okay. That was there too. And all these other titles we purchased directly from Buckley's website at
MalachyFriedman.com.
Yeah. Yes. MalachyFriedman.com, or Buddha Videos has them too.
Yeah.
So Buddha Videos has them. And if you have one of your instructionals that you would recommend to somebody to purchase first, which one would it be?
That's hard. So each one's very, very good for its own separate reasons. Like if you're trying to if you're a closed guard player, right, and you're trying to have a new attack that does not put you at risk, I would say Heisengard. Okay. So if you're a closed guard gi player and you're like, hey man, I got a good closed guard, I'm trying to get to other things, I need something that's, like these guys are getting kind of like on to me with my attacks. That's a whole new set of attacks that Heisengard brings in.
Okay.
If you are a jiu-jitsu person of anywhere and like gi, no gi, you should know how to stop darces. Like, or at least you should know how to start the prevention of, like, that's what the biggest thing I hate is, like, when guys are in a darce and their defense is basically putting their hand out, waiting, and then tapping. Like, it feels like this is going to choke me. Yep, it's going to choke me. And it's like, man, during that 3-second lapse, there are a bunch of things that you can do to open yourself up and get out. And I believe the Darce Killer is like premium Darce defense. And then when you get into Flower Power, it's a very good closed guard DVD that has a variation on the flower sweep, that makes it into not just a sweep, but makes it into a whole avenue of different attacks and different ways to finish your opponent. And then the things with shit your instructor, like I basically threw together. So shit your instructor never showed you, Unfuck Your Jiu-Jitsu, and Acai Free, like, was all one DVD that I put into 3 parts. And the shit your instructor never showed you are all techniques that you will probably never find on any other DVDs, of things that I found through doing jiu-jitsu that work. Like, so these certain amount of submissions. So this is basically submissions and submission defenses. Is shit your instructor never showed you. Unfuck Your Jiu-Jitsu is passes and sweeps, and Acai Free is like tactics and transitions. So like basically that was just a bunch of jiu-jitsu that I had. Like, there's no way of categorizing this other than like, hey, this is really shit your instructor never showed you. like, hey, this is like, and it just kind of got funny. And I was like, well, I got to separate this. This is like 5.5 hours.
Right.
So I separated it and just kind of made it into that, the kind of how, all like self-help books, because basically an instructional is a self-help book.
Right.
You know, and so it's basically, it's like, you know, like, you know, there was like unfuck yourself, or, you know, and then there was, you don't need that shit, or like, you know, like, you know, like, it's like, and they were always like, you know, they always had a curse word in there and just kind of perfectly placed, and they would like kind of scratch it out a little bit. And I was like, I see what y'all are doing. You know, it's attention grabbing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's marketing.
Yeah, it's good marketing. It's like when you walk into a Barnes and Noble, you don't expect to see the word shit scratched out.
Right.
You know, on the cover of the book. Or unfuck. You see unfuck. You know, your brain says unfuck, and you're like, oh, this is in like a Barnes and Noble.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it was kind of like the little marketing thing, just to be like, well, yeah, this is I believe shit your instructor never showed you, and I'm gonna do it in this kind of like self-help book type, like curse word scratched out kind of way. And I always try to have fun with whatever I'm putting out. If I'm putting something out, I want to enjoy. Like I used to, like, I don't know, I'm from the era of like CDs and DVDs, and you want like when you get the cover of a CD you like, and you're like, oh, the artwork's cool,
right?
You know, or like they did something like on the insert booklet, they did something funny. Right. There's a picture of the band, or like, you know, there's like lyrics inside of it. It's like that was always the kind of like upsale stuff that I really liked.
I did too.
So,
yeah.
And so it's like it kind of like drives you more. So I was always kind of, that's what I want with the DVDs, is that somebody says like, oh, if they buy a hard copy or they buy a copy, it looks cool. It's actually, you know, makes you want to have it besides just the techniques, you know, so there's something extra.
Yeah, that actually is something that I actually miss, is the ability to actually buy the DVD and actually have the physical DVD.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to a download. And the downloads are convenient, but I do like that. I mean, when I started buying from BJJ Fanatics years ago, I actually bought the hard DVDs, you know. But now I just do the downloads because it's all available. But I'm going to purchase one of your DVDs. I just wanted to see which one you thought would be the first one to look at.
Well, if it really, like, so I basically line them out for you, man. Like whichever, because I can't say one's better than the other. One's like a baby of mine. One's something completely different that a guard that nobody's ever seen. You know, it's just
right.
Like I wish there was a shitty DVD I could put at the end and just be like, yeah, I wouldn't buy that one. I really needed money at that point in my life, so I just
yeah, right.
That's the thing, is that's why I don't come out with so many DVDs. I'm going to do a half guard DVD, and it'll probably be the first time that there will be stuff that is probably on other people's DVDs, I assume, because I don't think I'm creating everything new. Right. With half guard, I'm just going to say, hey, this is what you need to know about half guard to develop a half guard game. Because I was stuck. I was like, if I'm not creating something brand new, why am I putting it out? Why do it? And then you look at guys like Danaher, you look at guys like Gordon Ryan, because they explain it really well. Yeah, they have a different way a different path of showing, you know, it's like, so maybe for some people that like the way I teach and like the way that the path that I take, you know, I was like, so I'll probably do them for like, I'll do like a 5 series, and I'll do them like 25 moves for $10 or something like that. And just because I feel different. Like, I don't know, I have a weird guilty conscience of putting things out that I haven't created or I haven't done. And I think when you look at a lot of other people's jiu-jitsu videos, it's like, man, this has been done 1,000 times, dude. How is your half guard domination any different than this guy's half guard obliteration? Right. You know, it's like you guys are basically like, your chapters are basically the exact same. You know, it's just because it's like, it's one champion or it's one influencer or it's one coach. It's like, and so I stayed away from, I think that the good thing with these 5 DVDs is that most of those 5 DVDs are things that I have a personal spin on. Everything. There's nothing in there that it's like verbatim jujitsu.
And that's cool because that gives you, as the person who's watching it, it gives you like a view into your personal way of doing it. It's like going to a seminar almost. It's not quite the same as a seminar, but it's not, like you said, it's not the same information that somebody else already put out. So that's really unique. It's awesome. It is awesome. And just as a funny closeout on that topic, I was actually in a bookstore last night and I saw a book that said, what is it called? Learn to not give a fuck.
Yeah. Hey, listen, and it got your attention to remember.
I opened it up and I read a little bit to see what else. Yeah. It's
because we all should learn not to give a fuck a little bit.
Yes, we should. I really need to learn that. That's one of my Well, hey, Malachy, I really enjoyed our conversation. It was great.
Thank you. I did as well.
And you can be reached out for people who want to follow you. You can be reached at Facebook at Malachy Friedman. You're on Instagram at the Mad Professor Combat Coach.
Yep, at MalachyFriedman.com or at Malachy Friedman.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. And the website is www.blacklabelmartialarts.com. And before we go, I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with the name Black Label Martial Arts? It's really cool.
I think liquor advertising has something to do with it. And then so you're like, okay, that's top shelf. And then there was skateboarding. There was a skateboarding brand called Black Label, skateboards and Black Flag. I mean, there was just so many different things that kind of like. So we went kind of like our route of our jiu-jitsu. So like, we have a fox as our logo. I think I can.
Yeah,
right.
I see. Yeah.
But we also do our team. We have like a team. We call it Raiders. We're the Raiders. I mean, we're the Black Flag.
Right.
And like, so you come to tournaments, raid tournaments and stuff. So it just kind of all fit together, kind of like in that
niche.
Yeah. And I think I didn't want to name a school after me. Because so many people were doing it. And one of the biggest things is that, man, at some point in my life, I'm going to be too old, and I want to be part of a legacy. So like you look at guys like Alliance, and you look at Optos, and you look at Art of Jiu-Jitsu. It's not Mendez Brothers. It's not Galval. It's not. It gives room for there to grow new talent there, because I don't need my one of my students down the road who becomes a brilliant coach. He can still be underneath the Black Label and make it his own thing and do his own kind of, like, when you think of Alliance, there's so many guys in Alliance,
right?
There's so many amazing fighters. Like, you forget that Marcelo Garcia's Alliance. You forget that, but it's not called, Jacare's Cavalcante is one of the leaders. It's not called Fabio Gurgel Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's what I really liked, that aspect of it. And I kept seeing everybody's names popping up. I was like, that doesn't give any growth to the people that someday want their own, want to be like, yeah, I'm Black Label, but my name is this. It's not Malachy.
Right.
And like, so like, I think a few people can do that and have done it well. Like Renzo Gracie's done it well.
Right.
But I can't tell you who I know owns a school under Renzo Gracie that I can't think of it. I can't think of it. I can think of some of the athletes, but it's hard to be like, okay, like, well, Donaher's under Renzo. No, Donaher was with Renzo forever.
Right.
There's some weird, had it been not Renzo, maybe it had been something else. Maybe Donaher would have created his own Donaher thing. Maybe it would still be the, like this jiu-jitsu. Probably he's probably would have done his own thing anyways, with the popularity and the money to cash in on, because he's brilliant and he should make money. But yeah, I just wanted it to be to where I could grow other students underneath the name, and they don't have to have my name always on their chest. They just know that I was a part of the legacy and I started it, and they were part of the legacy, and now they're carrying it. And something like
That makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, cool. Again, thank you for being on the podcast. I'm going to
Thank
check
you.
out some of those instructionals, and maybe you can come back. We can talk about a couple of them, like in depth.
That'd be great.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you again. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.